Hello and welcome back to Closely Observed English, and here we have a C1A Advanced essay for writing feedback. Let's get right into it. So, as with all essays, we have a little section at the start, the rubric, where you are given the context and you're given three things to consider. Two of those you have to talk about, and then you have to make a decision about it. I'm not sure if all of the rubric has been copied here, but let's have a look. So you've watched a TV program about scholarship and who should get it in your country. You've made the following notes. Who should receive scholarship? People with exceptional academic performance, foreign exchange students, or members of low-income families. You should write an essay for your tutor discussing two groups of people that should get scholarships. You're free to do that. And I think the missing point here would have to be decide which one would be most deserving of the scholarship, perhaps. I mean, it's usually a choice that you have to make, giving reasons, of course. Okay, now, before I go into the essay and I tell you the content mark or what I think it would be, word of caution. Just at a glance, I can immediately see that this is too long. And I did a little word count on here using Microsoft Word. And yes, it's 350 words. Now, the upper limit for an essay at C1 Advanced is 260 words, according to the rubric. Now, you can probably get away with adding another 10% to that, so that takes you up to around 290. But that still means that another 60 words go beyond the limit. And what does that do? Well, it's my understanding that what Cambridge will do if they see a text that's far too long, they will basically draw a line after the 10% window. And anything that happens after that line will not count towards your grade. So in other words, if you haven't discussed all of the content points by the time you hit that line, you won't get the credit for the content points, even if you discuss them. And I think that's fair, because if we look at the rubric, it does say for a band 3, minor irrelevances and or omissions may be present. Now, most people only see the omissions part. Now, an omission would be that you are you've forgotten one of the content points, for example, you omitted it. That's what most people see it as. But on the other side, the irrelevances part, that could either be because of a slight misunderstanding of the task, or, as often happens, students try to discuss too much in too much detail, meaning that some of what they write is not entirely relevant. And this is what pushes people past that limit. Well, let's take a read and see where we stand by the time we get to about 300 words, and we'll go from there, shall we? People nowadays are getting more career orientated. Okay. Thus, having a career means getting paid for the previous academic job you have done. Living in a world where every step requires a great amount of money, having a job is a necessity. Although education is everyone's birthright, it is not quite affordable for every family out there. Scholarships, on the other hand, are providing the opportunity for education to people unable to pay the tuition fees themselves. Working hard, getting exhausted, and doing everything in their power, some parents are still unable to support their children's education. Given the fact that oftentimes students from such families are more disciplined, hardworking, offering them a scholarship would be beneficial not only for them, but also for the university or the school they are attending to. University and school reputation is driven not only by their work, but also by conscientious students. Country and world educational rankings become exceedingly important to the public eye. That is why it would be crucial to the educational institutions to pay more attention to the not so wealthy but hardworking part of their candidates. On the other hand, there are many advantages to offering a scholarship to students from overseas. Creating an international environment, therefore providing foreigners and locals a dynamic surrounding, would help them improve in various ways. Learning from one another and bettering their skills, they will show better results in different tests. Later, that would be beneficial in their workspace as well. Another point worth mentioning is that people traveling from another country need financial support, and a scholarship could be the only thing they need, especially if the education in their homeland is unreliable. From what has been presented, one might conclude that a scholarship is a must when it comes to education. My belief is that students from low-income families deserve this kind of financial support the most, since hardworking and disciplined students should be appreciated. As a consequence from their attendance and remarkable academic results, the Educational Institute benefits in many ways, such as increasing the number of candidates and building a better reputation. Okay, so all of the content has been covered, but the candidate has taken too many words to do it. So I'm going to give the mark, and then I'm going to look at what we could trim, or where the fat is, let's say. And I'm going to say that because it's been so well covered, and it's really the last paragraph that takes us over the limit, I'm going to go for a 4. The only thing that's really missing is a clear decision about which one's more valuable, which party should get the money. That comes in the final paragraph, but like I say, that would probably be after the cutoff. So we're going to go down to a 4 there. So where can we get rid of some things? Well, first of all, the introduction is enormous. Have a look. It's 76 words. 76 words. The introduction is useful because it establishes the context in which you're working, but 76 words, I mean, that's a lot for an introduction. And yes, people are getting more career orientated. Okay. Go straight in though. Say, although education is everyone's birthright, it is not equally affordable for every family. There we go. So you could get rid of, well, how many words would that be? You could get rid of pretty much all of that. So that's already 40 words. That puts us within spitting distance of the cutoff. The next 2 paragraphs deal with the content, and I think they do a pretty good job of doing that. So I don't think there's much that we need to cut there. There might be a few little things that could be done to tidy up the writing, make it a bit tighter. But the next part, the conclusion, the first sentence, from what has been presented, one might conclude that a scholarship is a must when it comes to education. Is that the point? Who cares? That's another 20 words. So we've had 40 there and 20 there. That's 60. That brings us down below 300. My belief is that students from low income families deserve okay. Yeah, so if we reduce the conclusion a bit, if we get rid of half of the introduction, if we tidy up the 2 content points, I think we could get down to about 280 words. And if we could easily do that, then yes, these were irrelevances. The first half of the introduction was pretty much irrelevant. We didn't need to know about how career orientated people are if we're talking about getting a scholarship into university. We don't really need a rehash of the importance of scholarships before we introduce our conclusion. We know how important scholarships are. You've already told us several times. So cut the fat, get rid of what doesn't need to be there, and remember that you will be not exactly penalized for these sort of irrelevances and going off on a tangent a little bit, but it's not going to help you. So I'm going to say a 4 for the content. Now, in terms of communicative achievement, I think that this is generally pretty good because if we cut away the things that need to be cut, the ideas are well developed. I like these longer content paragraphs because they build the idea pretty well. They maintain a fairly formal or at least neutral tone throughout, which is what we want. And they are convincing enough that the person reading it would be like, yeah, okay, I think I agree with you. So if we go from that standpoint, I would say that the communicative achievement is going to be heading towards a 4. Organization is generally okay. If we ignore the fact that some of this is irrelevant, the paragraphs themselves are self-contained. So we can see this is the introduction, content 1, content 2, conclusion. We can see that. So that is a positive in terms of organization. So what else is there in terms of organization? Well, we can look at the glue within the paragraphs, can't we? We can look at how well the sentences stick together if we work from paragraph to sentence level. So I think generally the sentences stick quite well together. There are links as well. So if we take this paragraph here, this first part could be tidied up a bit, working hard, getting exhausted, and doing everything in their power. Some parents are still unable to support their children's education. Okay, I think that's quite good. I mean, there might be a language issue with getting exhausted, working to exhaustion, maybe. Working to exhaustion and doing everything in their power, or even though they work to exhaustion and do everything in their power, some parents are still unable to support their children's education. Okay. So there are a few little organizational problems here, and maybe even just with the punctuation. For example, have a look at this. Given the fact that oftentimes students from such families are more disciplined, hardworking, are they two ideas, disciplined and hardworking, or is disciplined modifying hardworking, which it can't? So that's either a mistake or it needs tidying up in terms of organization. But then we have offering them a scholarship would be beneficial not only for them, but also for the university or the school they are attending. University and school reputation. Okay. Possessive here maybe, or you could do X of Y. So the reputation of the university is driven not only by their work, but also. So that's a little bit of what I would say a stylistic weakness that we've got not only, but also twice in consecutive sentences. That doesn't show flexibility. So that's the sort of thing that's going to rule out a 5 on organization. I would say that the effect of the organizational choices made by the writer are good. So that would put us at a band 3. And then that brings us to the language. I would say that there are no massive problems here with the language. There was nothing that made me look at it and go, what? So that suggests that there aren't any errors that impede communications. That's good. Like I said before this part, look at this again. Maybe think about what it is you really want to say. But generally the language is fine. I think that there are little problems here and there. So I'll read it out loud and see if you think it sounds right. So for example, here, scholarships, on the other hand, are providing the opportunity for education to people unable to pay the tuition fees themselves. That's generally good, but why continuous? Why are they providing instead of simple? Scholarships, on the other hand, provide an opportunity for the opportunity for education. Do we say opportunity for education? Provide access to education, I would say. And I'm not sure if on the other hand quite works here, which is a bit of an organization thing as well as a language thing. Have you got the first hand? I mean, you said although every education is everyone's birthright, is not quite affordable for every family out there. But are they two hands? Are we looking at two sides of the same coin, to switch metaphors midstream? I'm not sure that we are. So again, just think a little bit more carefully about precisely what you want to say. But I'm going to be relatively generous here. I'm going to say that we're looking at probably a 3 for the language, either a 2 or 3, but I'm going to go for a 3 because I think that there are some pretty positive expressions here that seem fitting in the context of this essay. And on that note, I shall finish. We've got ourselves a pass on the day of the exam. If you can trim it a little bit so it doesn't go over the word limit too much, I think that it would be a fairly successful piece. So there we go. Thank you very much.